Today's app, GoldMine, is going to be a little bit different from the projects that I've had you do before. The main reason being that there are some things in it that are a little bit more complicated, so I've actually given those things directly to you. I've given you a template, a main template, which creates the GoldMine field, as you can see here. So you don't have to worry about that. You can take a look at the code and perhaps see how I've done that. It's not too complicated, but it does do some stuff that I've never demonstrated for you before. So take a look, see what you can do. One thing you will need to do before moving forward is to add the accounts password package and also the accounts UI package, because we're going to have all of the users, all of the people playing this game log in. It's going to make things a little more interesting. So do that before moving forward. The idea is that we now have this 20 by 20 grid of locations, and each location has one of these divs with class of location. If we go to the CSS file, we can look and see what location is all about. So we have the height, width, border, all of this you can just kind of take a look at, nothing too crazy here. So the first thing that we'd like to be able to do is indicate that there is a piece of gold at a particular location. If you look at the common.js, you'll see that we have a collection called gold, and so this just has a certain number of pieces. And when the server starts up, it automatically checks to see if there's any gold in the system yet. If there's not, then it will put together a certain amount of gold. Right now the default is 200. It'll spread it all over the place. It creates this gold object. Now a gold object has certain properties that it starts with. It's assumed not to be found, so it has this property found, which we are setting to false. It has a certain mass, which is going to be randomly distributed between 0 and 100 grams. It has a location somewhere in the field, and the location is given by X and Y. And there's also this ease of mining property, which we'll talk about. Just to make it a little more interesting as a game, I've made it so that just because you click on a cell with gold doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get it. There's a certain difficulty associated with each piece of gold. And so some of the functions that I put in here make that possible. So the first thing we want to do is make it so that we can see where the gold is. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our HTML, and I'm going to put in a class called hasGold. Now this class, if it is equal to gold, here it is. I'm going to color it yellow. If it does not have gold in it, it's going to be blank the way you see here. So I need to make a helper for this particular template, so the location template. So I actually do have this in here. If it has gold, what it's going to do is it's going to look through the collection of gold, and it's going to try to find for a particular location. So this.x, this.y just means at a given location X and Y, and it's looking for gold that has not yet been found. And it's going to count up how many there are, and if the number of gold found is greater than 0, we're going to return gold, which means that this class is going to appear as gold. So if we save that, we'll see the field update with cells that have gold in them. Now, to make it a little more interesting, it might be nice to know how many gold pieces are in each cell. So this is found using the other helper here called num of gold, number of gold. And so this is just going to return pretty much the same thing that the last helper returned. It's going to find how much gold is there at a particular location. It's going to count up how many there are at the given x and y, and it's going to return that number to the template. So we need to add that helper to the location template. So num of gold, put that in, save it, and it will now indicate how much gold is in each particular cell. All right, so the next piece is we want to actually mine for gold. But if we click on some of the cells with gold in them, we get this message that says we have to sign in to mine for gold. So, as you might imagine, we have to add in the login buttons template in order for that to work. So we will do so, and we'll get the little option up here to sign in. Okay, so I'm going to sign in as myself. And now if I click a couple times, I'm able to mine the gold. But this isn't very interesting because I'd like to be able to see how much gold I've actually collected. So we're going to add a couple more templates to the mix here. You'll notice in here we have no templates that show the users that have actually logged in. So we're going to add those right now. Two templates that are going to be important for this. The first template is something I'm calling Scoreboard. And so what I want to do is get all of the people who have logged in, all of the people who are mining for gold, and I'd like to list some information about them. So I have an each block that's going to go and get what all of the people logged in are, so each miners. And then we're going to put inside of that some information. Let's take a look at the helper for this. Let's put together the helper. It's not there yet. So down here, template.scoreboard.helpers. We're going to close that with the brace and parentheses down here. And the only helper there is miners. Now, we haven't talked too much about this, but there is a collection that consists of all of the users that have ever created an account on the system. And it's called Meteor.Users. And it works exactly the same way as every other collection. Now for right now, I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to say I just want to get all of the users that are in this collection. So I'm going to save that. And you'll notice that we still don't actually see anything down here, and this is because we don't know what we're supposed to do with each miner that's been found. So we need to make this miner information template. And the miner information template is very simple. It just has an outside div, and we're going to list the miner. We want to get the miner name, so that's just the username of the user, and the amount of gold that is mined. And so I'll show you how we get that as well. If we save that, we'll see that we still don't see anything. And so the issue is that we haven't added the scoreboard in. So let's make sure we add in the scoreboard template. So I'll put that down here. And now we can see that we have 3 accounts that have been logged in. These are all me, just for the sake of making this video. But we're still not seeing any information about them. And again, this is because we don't have any helpers yet. So let's get the helpers for this scoreboard, and also, actually I guess the helpers would be inside the miner information template because this gives us the miner name and also the miner gold, the total amount of gold. So we're going to put in a template.minerinformation.helpers function. And this isn't too complicated. For the miner name helper, we just want to return the username of the user that was found in the collection. Remember that the each block got every single user that's in the database, and it returned them to the scoreboard template. And so miner name just means find that user and return the username. The miner gold means find the user that refers to the user that is in the template right now. So find the user with that ID and return the current user.profile.gold total. Now we haven't talked about profile, but the profile is a place that you can store information about your user. And so I am storing all of the gold that's been collected inside the profile document. And this is how you access that information about the user. So we put that in. We save the information, and we can see that we're now getting the usernames and also the amount of gold that has been mined. Now, one little thing that we might want to do, because you notice we have all of these decimal places, is I'm going to add one other thing to the end of this. It's a function that allows you to take a certain number and tell it how many decimal places you want it to give. So I only want it to give one decimal place, because this is a little bit crazy. This isn't NASA. So we'll save this, and then you'll see that the amount that is returned is a nice, clean, single decimal place. Okay, much better. Okay, so now we're able to see all of the users, and we can see who is winning. But it would be nice to be able to see, to be able to always have on top whoever has the most amount of gold. So let's go back to this Meteor Users.find, and this is where we're going to add in a sort function. And I want to sort in order of the amount of gold that each user has put in. So I'm going to put in profile.gold total. Profile properties you have to put in quotes. And I want to sort them in decreasing order so that I know who is on top. Now you can see that the user E. Weinberg is obviously on top, but if I go to my other user that's open and I start mining gold, as I click, you can start to see that I'm moving up as I actually am successful in collecting gold. The anonymous user moves all the way up to the top. So you can see that this is a real-time list of who has mined the most gold in our game. Now, for the next part, I want to make it so that, since I'm the owner of this game, I want to make it so that I can control what's happening in this game. For example, if everybody has mined all of the gold, I want to make it really easy so that I can reset and perhaps randomly throw out pieces of gold out on the field for everyone else to get. To do that, I have to make it so that I, as the owner of the game, can see a little control panel that gives me access to all of these things, but I don't want everyone else to see it. So if you can think about it, this sounds a lot like a helper that makes it so that only I can see a little control panel. I have in the files, in my files, I have a little control panel template which looks like this, and it has just some simple stuff in it. So it has a button that lets me reset the field, it has a button that lets me reset the user gold, and it has an input that lets me say how many gold pieces I want to put out on the field. So if I go up to the main template and I put this below the scoreboard and I save it, you can see that I have these options to reset the field, reset user gold, and maybe throw out a new set of gold pieces. But I want to make it so that only I can see this. So what I want to do is use a helper block, and I want to say if it is me, so if it is EMW, then show control panel. If it's not EMW, I don't want to see it. So let's go to the main helper block and add this as a helper. So is EMW, this is going to be a function that returns something very simple. This is going to return, it's going to figure out who is the current user, We get that by typing in meteor.user parentheses. And then I would just want to get the username. And I know, I'm going to put parentheses here so that this can all be one expression. I know that I want that username to be E. Weinberg. If the current user logged in doesn't have the username of E. Weinberg, this will return false. But if it is me logged in, this will be true. You can hopefully understand that this is not a very high security way to do this. So we're going to talk later on about how to do this a little bit better. Okay, so we'll save that. And so now when we scroll down, you can see that I am able to see these buttons. Or if we go to the other account that is currently logged in, the control panel template is not visible. So this is working the way we want it. We now need to add in the event handlers for these buttons because right now these don't do anything. So these are going to appear in the control panel events template. Now, if you've looked at the client.js file, you'll see there are actually some functions that I put in here to take care of the things that I want to have happen when we press each of these buttons. So when we hit the reset field button, what I want to have happen is I want to delete all the gold. So I have this function delete all gold. So inside the click the reset field button, I want to do two things. I want to delete all gold, so I run that function, and then I have this other function that is randomly place gold, and that's a function of number of pieces. So I could just put in randomly place gold 200, and this would randomly place 200 pieces of gold in the field. But it would be nice to be able to set that in real time. So let's instead, before I do that, get the number that's inside this formed field. And so I do this by using a variable. I'm calling it number of pieces. And so this means I want to get a number from whatever is inside the number of pieces input, and then I want to put that number of pieces inside of the randomly place gold function. And so this means when we click the reset field, this will remove all the gold, and then it will randomly place a certain number of pieces. So you can see that there's still a certain amount of gold out there. If I now click the reset field button, it takes 50 pieces of gold and randomly puts them all over the place. Maybe I want to change this to 500. It takes a little bit more time because it has a lot of calculating to do. So give it a little bit of time. But now we can see there's lots of gold out there. I don't want that much. Let's just leave it back at 50. And so now it clears it all out. So that button is working. Now we want to reset the user gold. I've also created a function that does this. If you take a look at the JavaScript that I've done here for deleting the gold or deleting the miners, you'll see that it follows a common pattern. We find all of the items in the collection. This is the users collection. And then this is a special function called for each, which means that for each one, do whatever this function is to each element. So this just means for deleting all gold, I already showed you that. If I want to reset the user gold, I'm going to each user, and for each user, I am setting the individual user's profile gold total property to be 0. And so if I add that in and save it, and then reset the user gold, you see all except you won't because I actually have to make it run this particular function. So I have reset minors here. You can take a look and see what that does. But I have to add in an event handler. Okay, make sure you use the same kind of quotes on each end as I didn't just now. So now that we have that, we want to just run this reset minors function. So we can just type in reset minors. And that looks like this. So we'll save it. And so now if I click on reset user gold, it doesn't work. Let's take a look and see why that might be. What did I name this? Oh, I said reset user gold was the name. Okay, so I need to make this instead reset user gold. Okay, so now if I click reset user gold, everyone's gold goes to 0.